In this video, we're going to be taking a look at what I think will be an interesting little project for us, and that is creating satin text. Now, we have lots of other video demonstrations on how we're going to go about creating satin text from a TrueType font, but I know in my own learning, I like to watch every single video I can find on a particular subject, and I definitely like to watch videos by multiple different individuals because it seems like everyone has a little bit different way of explaining the exact same project. So in this case, these are some little fabric carrots that I've made for upcoming Easter holiday. And I've got an order for some additional names. And so I thought I would go through and show you exactly how to convert this particular font into Satin Stitch. You can see they look really nice. They did a really good job stitching out. And so that's what we're going to be taking a look at. Okay. So this is my template. And this is the lettering that I had previously done. But now we're going to be taking a look at 3 additional names. So let's go ahead and grab our text tool here and type out these names. Now, I am using the Bestie font, the Bestie TrueType font. Now, you see this here. This looks really strange. And honestly, I don't know. I'm a little confused as to exactly how this got this way and why this is kind of now set up as the default. I really don't know. But in order to fix this, what we have to do is come up here, and you see this negative 101. We just need to change that value to 0. Now, when we change that value to 0, I'm not sure why that value doesn't stay 0. But it just doesn't want to do it. So, something that I've learned a lot about converting text is, and I'm gonna really try and really make some sense of all this. I'm not overly concerned right now about the actual size of the font. So let's just take a look here. This letter, this overall height is 2.25. So I guess what we'll do is we'll make this the same for now. We may tweak that a little bit going forward. But so we're going to go ahead and show you how we're going to go about converting this into text. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do, switch over here to our text panel. You can see that our current font size is this 163,306. Now this is what I really recommend that we do. First of all, there's the original text. Now we're going to work on a duplicate. So there's our duplicate. So now, we'll never touch this. We're just going to work on this now. So the first thing that we're going to do here is select, this is just one piece of text right now. So we need to convert this into paths. So we're going to go to path and choose object to path. And if we go over here to our layers palette, we can probably see this update. So you see here, we now have that as a path and that whole thing is a path. Okay. So now what we're going to do is select that again, but this time we're going to go to path and we are going to choose break apart. Okay, now we didn't see anything really happen here, and that's because we're kind of stuck in this text group. All right, so what we have to do is take these out of that text group. That's what I like to do anyhow. I don't really like working with groups in InkScape for some reason. So now when we select that, you can see we do in fact have a path selected. So when I hit path and choose the break apart option, we'll actually get what we expect, which is a jillion paths. One path for each letter, essentially. And that's not really true because like the letter E here, for example, has 2 paths. Okay. So there's lots of things to really understand and get nailed down. And when you do, you'll be able to convert lettering to satin quite easily, especially when we're dealing with a true type font. So I'm going to start here with the letter L. Now the biggest thing, the most important thing to keep in mind when we're trying to create satin, we cannot have any fill color, which in this case we don't have a fill, but if we did have a fill, we could never have satin. So satin will never work with any object that has a fill associated with it. The other thing is when we're dealing with satin, is we need two rails, okay? So essentially what a rail is a path. We need two paths, okay? So if we take, for example, our letter L here, in its current form, it is a single path, and we need two, okay? And we need two paths set up in a certain way that will allow us to generate our satin the way we want. So what we're going to do is start at the top here and double click on our path. And we're just going to double click here. Let's get rid of our transformation handles. We don't want to see those right now. But let's just go ahead and double click on a path. That creates a node. And then we're going to, with that node selected, you see that's kind of highlighted in blue. We're going to hit Shift and B as in boy. And what that does is actually breaks that node. And if you come right up here, it's the same thing. Break path at selected node. But now you can see we have two of something, right? Well, we need to do the same thing down here. We'll select that node, hit break apart, and you will see we have two of something again. So essentially, that is the foundation. If I were to break this path apart some more, so let's do that, you would see that we now have two pieces because we broke it at the selected nodes, right? Well, we cannot have two separate paths. They need to be combined. So we'll choose path and combine. So when we're doing satin, they do need to be combined into one path. But down below, it's actually two paths because we broke those nodes apart. So it's a little bit confusing in that sense. But now if I go into params, so I'm just going to come in here to extensions and InkStitch and choose params. I do have my keyboard shortcut of Control-Alt-P, so going forward I will use that keyboard shortcut. But essentially, now that we've gotten it to this point, we can now tell it that we want that to be satin. So we'll undo that, and we will get some satin stitches. Okay? Now, here's the next challenge. You can see that we did get our satin stitches, so that's the good part. But the bad part is, of course, this is kind of wonky down here at the bottom. Why is that wonky? Let's choose Apply and Quit. Why is that wonky? Well, the reason that's wonky is because we didn't quite give InkStitch the information it needed. We overloaded it. We gave it too much information. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. The biggest thing when it comes to satin is any node that is associated with the path. All these little white dots are nodes. InkStitch looks at those nodes to tell us what stitch angle we are expecting. And when there's too many nodes, or like in this case, see how this node is like at a severe angle? It's going to think we want a stitch angle at that angle. So in this case, there's way too many nodes. So what we're going to do is hold Control Alt and get rid of anything we think we don't need. For example, this one, and we just click on it. This one. We're going to watch our path as we do this, and you see our path change fairly significantly. So we'll hit Control Z and we won't mess with that one. But now that we know that one is there, we need one more or less directly across from it. So we don't need that one no more. We don't think we need that one, we don't think we need that one, and we don't think we need that one. Our path changed ever so slightly. So now we can just keep going. We don't need that. We can leave that one, but we want one straight across because that's how our stitches will be. Now, do we really need that one? Not really. We don't need that one. We probably don't need that one. Now when we're coming around the bend here, that one's probably okay, and that one can pair up, but we don't need that one or that one, or this 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 one. Now we can leave another control in there when we're wanting to start straightening out our stitches. So those are all okay, but we don't really need this one. This one is fine, but we don't need these two, one right on top of one another. So there you go. So you got that, and of course you got that. So now you can see all these have now pairs. We have the same number of nodes on the left that we have on the right. Okay, so let's go back into params now and check out our result. And now you'll see that we get the more expected result that we were looking for. Nice satin column all the way through. Okay. So let's just move on to our next piece. We got the eye here. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select that one, hit Shift B. We'll zoom in here a little bit. We'll double click, add one, Shift B. And then we'll say, okay, what do we need? What do we don't need? Well, I don't need that, and I don't need that. Those two are fine. Don't need that. Don't need that or that. This one's okay. Don't need that or that. That one's okay. This one's okay right here. This one's probably okay, but we really don't need that one or that one or that one or that one. And you can see quite quickly how everything is now, right, the way we expect it to be. Go back into params. And so once you get good at it and you know what the software is going to do, what it's expecting, all those things, then you can blaze through it, the editing process much quicker. Okay, so now when we look at our stitches there, you could see we get a nice stitch result just like we expected. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and move on to this piece. Let's zoom in here. Double click, break apart. So we double click and break apart. Over here, we'll double click, we'll break it apart. We don't need this, that's fine. We don't need that, we don't need that or that. Now, I do like to have one in here, so we don't need any of those. This one's okay, we don't need that. That one's okay, we don't need that. We can come over here. Don't need that or that. Or that. Let's come up here. We don't need this one or that one. Those two are fine. That one. And we can leave that. Okay? So now those are all paired up the way we expect. Let's see if we get the satin stitches that we expect now. So we don't want no running stitch. And yes, our satin column is looking like we expect it to look. There's a little something strange happening there. What's happening there? Well, I can tell you, just from experience, I know what's happening there. But what's happening there is we saw a problem right here. And what's happening here is the old phantom node. Now remember, InkStitch is very sensitive about nodes. It needs buddies. All of our nodes need a partner. So in this case, I'm going to just come in here. I'm just going to move that node just a little bit. But right here, right there, there's a problem. No? Somewhere right around here. Maybe it's not there. Aha. There's a node here, but not one here. That's where the issue was. Okay? So now when we go look at that, sometimes there's a node hidden behind another node that we can't see. But in that case, that wasn't the case. That one lonely node did not have a friend. And so you see the difference? Now he has a friend to hold hands with, and No issues there with our satin. Okay, so now we have the L and the I and the L all taken care of. What do we want to do next? Well, now we've got to kind of jump into something that's a bit more complicated, and that is our letter A. So we know what we want for our letter A, but how do we make the satin stitch do that? So what we want to do is we want this to stitch, and then we want this to be a second satin column. But right now, we can't do it that way because we have too many bits and parts. You see that letter A is all one, for one thing. And so we're going to double click on it right here, right here. I'm holding my shift key right here and right here. I want to break at the selected nodes. Shift B, it will break at the selected nodes, and then we'll do File, Break Apart. And now you'll see we actually have two parts, that part and this part, okay? But what we want it to do is we want it to do a satin stitch here, okay? Well, the way it's currently sitting, we won't get the stitch results that we want. So here's what we need to do. This piece here, we need to dispose of. We don't need that. But now this piece is separate from the outside piece, and we know that if we're doing rails, that those have to be combined. Okay, so they cannot be two separate items. Now, in theory, that could be converted to satin, but we've got issues because we haven't dealt with our nodes at all. So, for example, this doesn't have a buddy. He does, this one don't, this one don't and don't need one. This one don't have a buddy. I guess we could put him back in there. That has a buddy. That has a buddy. And technically, that has a buddy. So now, let's take a look at our satin stitch and see what kind of result we get. We do have something we have to fix. But at least we can look and see. There's something strange happening right here, isn't there? We don't like that. But the rest of it looks good. So why is this happening? Well, we already know why that's happening. And that's because these guys are too far apart. Okay? So to fix that issue, what we would do is just select that node and this node and choose this option right here. Okay? Join selected end nodes with a new segment. Okay? Now that we've done that, we want to break it apart up here. So you see there? So now watch what happens. Just that little tiny little change, and we should get our expected satin column results. Let's go back over here. And indeed, we do get the expected satin column results that we wanted. See? Little simple fix. Now, it's probably going to be easiest for us to turn off the visibility of that for a moment so we can do the other part of our letter A. Okay? And so here, we're going to take this one, and we're going to choose the join selected nodes with a path. And then here we're just going to pretend eyeball it, right? And then we're going to go into the regular satin setup. So break it there, break it here, get rid of that node, this node, put that one there, that one's fine, that one's probably okay, that one's okay. Get rid of that. That's where we broke it, so we don't need those two. And there we go. Okay? Just that quick. So now, if we look at it, get rid of the running stitch. And you can see we did in fact get our expected result that we were looking for. Okay, so we go ahead and turn that visibility back on. Okay, so now the I, the L, the A, this L is all taken care of, but not our heart. Now the heart represents kind of an issue. We want our heart to stitch out in satin, okay? So that's step number one. We do want our heart to stitch out in satin. I want to refer you back to, oh, that's not great. We can't really see the heart, but it is stitched out in satin. You'll have to take my word for it, I guess. So you can't really see that, but it does create us a problem because we need 2 rails in order to generate satin, first of all, and I want my satin stitches to go horizontally, okay? And so in order to do that, we have an issue right here because it's going to start out fine, but it's going to get to here and stop because it can't get up here, okay? So we've got to do this a little bit differently. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I were to just break those 2 apart right there and say, okay, let's make that satin. Let's go into params. Technically, that's 2 rails. So technically, that would convert to satin. And you can see it converts to satin. But then you can also see what happens. We get this weird anomaly up top, which we don't want. Okay? So what do we have to do to fix that? Well, this is what we're going to do. We are just going to draw a guideline down, just kind of an imaginary guideline, if you will. And we're going to go ahead and add a node, okay? And we are going to select this one, and that one that we added, and this one that we added, and we're going to break it, okay? We're going to break it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to break the whole path. So now we have this piece, and this piece, and this piece, and this piece. Okay? So now, if I take these 2 pieces and choose Path and Combine, and these 2 pieces in Path and Combine, what do we have? We have our 2 rails again. So now we're going to get stitches that's going to go, and let me just show you. So now we're going to get rid of our running stitch, and you can see now we have the little top piece of our heart, exactly what we expected, okay? And then we go over here, and it's going to do the exact same thing. Okay, so we're going to get rid of our running stitch, and then it's going to be converted in satin, so now we got the other little piece of our heart, okay? And now this is separate from this, but we are going to take those 2 and combine them, Path and Combine, and now when we take a look at this, now you will see that it's going to get the bottom part of our heart. Now this isn't quite right because the reason these satin stitches look like they do is because we never dealt with our nodes. So let's just take a look at our first path. You can see there it is. That's why that looked perfect. And there it is. Even though this guy doesn't have a friend, maybe we can just get rid of him. Now that is fine. Now here, we do have issues because this guy doesn't have a friend, but he's also not necessary. Neither is that or that. And so now, technically, these probably are not necessary either. So now we just have our end and that. And so now when we look at it in params, you will see that we get a nice satin stitch result. Now, here's the thing I want to encourage you. You're like, well, geez, you know, you're going crazy with the node editing, and I don't even understand what you're doing. Well, just know this, okay? Know this. I am going to go ahead and add in a couple of control nodes here. But know this, all that will come in time. I'm really just sharing concepts at this point. Concepts. Okay, you have to get in there. You have to do the work. You have to muddle around a bit. But I'm just trying to give you a little heads up what's happening and why it's happening so that when you get in there and muck around and you run into an issue, boom, you're like, okay, I bet I know why that is. Okay. The node editing portion of all this, that will come in time. But you have to get in there and just try some of this stuff that I'm showing you. Okay? So now we have the L, the I, the L, the A, and our heart done, and that brings us to the letter E, which kind of creates a whole new series of issues. And it's really kind of interesting because once you've done a whole alphabet, especially a script alphabet, you'll see that certain letters do create a problem for us, and um, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter what the font is itself, it's the same issues with the same letters. And you could see that in the case of the A, we had two separate columns where we didn't have that with the L's, right? Or the I. We didn't have multiple columns, but the A, we do have multiple columns. The M and the N's and the D's and lots of letters, we have multiple columns that we have to deal with. But in the case of the E, we just have a single satin column, but we have to create it in a kind of what I would call weird way. We just got to think about things a little bit differently. So what do we got to do here? Well, let me show you what we're going to do. Let's see. Yes. So right now we have the inside of our E and the outside of our E as two separate objects. So let's do path and combine because that is ultimately what we want. Okay. And of course we know we have to give two rails. So let's start with what we know over here. That will be Shift B, that, and then we'll get rid of that and that and that and that and that and that. We're getting rid of all of our unnecessary nodes. We're Control Alt and clicking on them. We can leave that one set of controls there. And we can leave that there. We'll get rid of this. This is going that way. Okay, now this is the point where we get kind of messed up here. All right. So what we're going to do is right here and here, I want to break that apart, Shift B, and I want to just pull this away. I'm just going to pull it away a little bit, and then this one I'm going to pull away a little bit. Okay, just like that. Okay, so what I want you to envision is I want you to envision those 2 points is where our start point is going to be, and it's going to come around and finish. So I'm just going to stretch this out a little bit and stretch this out a little bit. I might even throw in a node there. Okay, so now we stretched that out a little bit. And now with these two here, I need to create a line segment. Okay, so my rails is going to start and come around. Now I do not want nodes there because those are just confuse me. So you see here, so there's where our rails are going to start, and it's going to come around and stitch right to that point. Okay, so now I could just come in here. We don't need that node. Okay, well, I guess, yeah, let's go ahead and leave that node, but he needs a buddy then. So we don't need that one. That one's okay. This guy here is a lonely fella. And then this one we're just going to move over a little bit. And this one, I don't know. We'll do something like that. That we probably don't need. That's okay. Don't need that one. Better not need that one. That's good. We'll put one there, there. Let's see. Yes, that, and that. Okay. So now you see how, if you can see here, everything's paired up. So this is where it starts. Pair, 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 pair. Then a pair, and a pair, and a pair, and a pair, and a pair. And because of how we have these nodes, that's kind of what dictates our stitch angles. So let's go ahead and let's see what we got. So we're going to go into params. We're not going to have a running stitch, and you could see that it starts over here on the right side of our E, and it comes in, but we don't want that. We actually need that to be backwards. So we'll go to Satin Columns and choose Swap, and then it's going to start on the inside of our E, and it's going to come around, cover up a couple of stitches there, and finish it off. Ain't that nice? So there you go. So now we have all of this. stitching the way we want to. And that's, you know, that's success if you ask me. So now what? Well, now what we need to do is we need to tell InkStitch in the order we want this to stitch. So we're going to select our L, hold our Shift key, and then our E, and then we're going to do the top left, top right, bottom of our heart, our I, our L, the left side of our A, the right side of our A, and then we're going to go to Extensions, InkStitch, and Edit, and we're going to choose Restack Orders, Objects in the order of the selection. And there you go. Now, this should all stitch correctly. So if we go into params again, you will see that it is going to start stitching from the left, and you can see it goes to the right. Exactly what we would expect. Okay? Now, there's still more editing to do here, but for right now, that is, I'm going to call that quote-unquote complete. Okay? So now, let's go ahead and select all of this and give it a different outline color so we can differentiate. So now what we want to do is we want to look at ARI. Well, we're not going to duplicate something that we've already done. So for example, ARI, we already have the eye and the heart completely digitized. So we don't need to redo that. We are going to need to do the R and the A, however. And then if we look at Alexi, we have the I, the E's, the L's, and then when we do Ari, we'll have the A. So for Alexi, all we have to do really is the letter X because everything else is done. So we need to do an X, an A, and an R. That's it. That's it. That's all we need for these particular names. And that's why we've got things set up the way we set them up. Okay? So, don't have to worry about the I, but we do have to worry about the R here. And we already know how to do this from the A, right? So we're going to break it here and here, Shift B, and then we're going to go ahead and break the whole path apart because we need just this side of our R and then this side of our R. So let's deal with this side. Okay, we're going to there and do a join selected. Okay, now we're going to go into rail making mode here. So we're going to select that, Shift B, select this, Shift B. We're going to get rid of that. We'll come up tight here. We're going to get rid of this one and this one and this one and this one. We're going to leave that, and that's ready to be converted to satin, so that's good. Now, let's go ahead and turn off the visibility for that for a second. So remember our A, we have a long point here, so we're going to join selected. But then where do we want that? Right here. We're going to break it right there. And we'll go ahead and give it a control here and here. This guy here, he's okay. So, but he needs a friend. That one's okay. We'll get rid of that one. We'll get rid of that one. We'll put one right there behind it. Let's get rid of that one. We'll add a partner to him, That's good. And then down here, did we break this apart? We did not. But we need to. So Shift B. And then we can get rid of this, this, and that. Okay, so now we have all of our partners the way we should. So let's go ahead and turn back on the other part of our R here. And let's just go ahead and set that to satin and make sure that that is going to stitch the way we expect it to. Yes, that looks good. And yes, that looks good. So we're good to go there. Ari is coming along very nicely. So here on our A, the inside is separate from the outside, which we don't want that. So path combine. That's step one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this node and 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 break all those. Then path break apart, right? But so we know we need this top piece of our A, this piece of our A, the bottom of our A, and this bottom of our A, and that all needs to be combined, path combined. Okay, and now we know that this and this needs to be connected. So we'll do that. And then we know that this and this needs to be connected. So we'll do that. And we know that this and this needs to be connected. And we'll do that. And then we know that that needs to be connected. So now we have just, right? But now we need our rails. So we already know how to do that. We've done that a bunch of times. So double click. We will create a new node. Break that right there. Let's create a new node and break that right there and get rid of this and this and this and this and that. Over here, we'll get rid of this and this. Those are fine. Really, we don't need these here. So let's just go ahead and get rid of them. I'm good with leaving that one, but we don't need that, or that. Up top here, what do we need? Well, let's see here. We're good there. Let's go ahead and let's get rid of that. We're good there. So we've got one there, there. We're coming around the bend. So we'll connect that one. Let's get rid of that one. This one's okay. And we don't need that, or that, or that, or that, or that, or this, or this. Okay, that will still keep our curve, and then boom, there we go. So now we've got kind of a weird thing going on here because we've got some sharp angles there, but this should now be ready for its satin debut. So there we go. Let's take a look. Beautiful satin. Very nice transition up top. Very good. Okay, it's going to stitch out beautifully. So then here we have to select all of these, combine them of course, Control K, and then just like with our A, we need to do some connecting here. So we need this one and this one connected. Then we need this one and this one connected, but we kind of forgot one piece, obviously. So this and this needs to be connected. And then we can double click on that, and then we can go ahead and connect here and here, connect, and then here and here, connect, and then we got to go into node editing mode here. We'll get rid of that. I'm just holding Control Alt and then clicking on any node that I want to dispose of, such as that. This one, this little guy here needs to be Shift B, break at nodes. What are we doing over here? Well, let's go ahead and break that one. But then we can dispose of that, and that, and that, and this. Okay? So now that is ready for its satin debut. I really wish it would default to satin rather than running stitch, because more often than not, we do more satins than we do running stitches, so I wish it would default to that. But because we're always changing it off of running stitch to satin, so that's kind of annoying. But okay, so we want to also define the order in which we want this to stitch. Okay. Oh, we have to change out that. So here's our eye. We're going to duplicate our eye. Control D to duplicate. And we'll pick this up, the duplicate, and we'll come over here and we'll just place it just like that. And you see that right there? So we'll just go ahead and hide that, and then we can get rid of that. And then this that we hid, we can just unhide. And there you go. So let's go ahead and let's give that a different color. But then we are going to change the stitch order. So we're going to do the back of our A, and then the cross, and then the R, left, right, bottom, and let's see here. What do we do here? Back over here, left, right, bottom, and then the bottom of our eye. So we go to Extensions, and we'll choose InkStitch, Edit, Restack the objects in the order that they were selected. And there you go. So now those will stitch in order. So now we decided that basically everything is going to be duplicated. So our L needs to be duplicated. It's going to come over here. And then, yes, our I needs to be duplicated. So it's going to come over here. And then, ooh, well, I guess it didn't like my duplication. There we go. Now she's duplicated. Now she's duplicated. So we'll just put that right on top. We will hide those parts so we can get rid of our I. Our L here, we'll do kind of the same thing. We'll move that L into position here. Beautiful. We'll go ahead and hide it so we can then dispose of that one. So then, yes, we're going to go ahead and copy our A over. So we'll Control D, move that over here, move that into position. And it doesn't have to be, you know, super precise, just close. And we'll go ahead and get rid of our A because we no longer need it. And then we can copy over an E here twice. Okay. And one more time. Close enough, right? So then these will go ahead and get rid of this E and this part of the E and the E and the E. Okay, so now we just have to convert our X. And of course our X is going to go like this with a satin column and then a satin column right back on top. So what we have to do is here and here and here and here, break it, right? Path, break apart, okay? And then we need to take this piece and combine them. And then we need to take this piece and combine them. And then we need to take this piece and combine them with a segment. This piece and this piece, combine with a segment. Then we need to do the same thing, go in the other direction, combine with a segment, combine with a segment. Okay, but we don't want that node, that node, that node, or that node. We are going to break that one, and then we don't want that one. Those two are fine, but that one we don't need. Up top here, we are going to break that, and then we don't want that or that. Okay, then over here, we don't want this one, this one, this one, or this one. We are going to break that one. That's fine, but we'll get rid of that, and that is fine. And then over here, we want to break this one, get rid of that, add that, get rid of that, that. Add one there. Now let's just get rid of it. I don't like having nodes. If we don't really need them, let's just get rid of them. And I'll just slide this one over just a little bit. Okay, so there you go. Now that all should convert to satin the way we expect it to. See, this is the part. I don't like having to turn off running stitch. Please, please make satin the default. Because I don't like having to do that every time. But you can see, we did get our perfect satin stitch results there. So, excelente. Okay, so now we can turn back on all this stuff that we had turned off. Okay, and we want all this to be a color. So let's do that. I now need to specify what order I want this to stitch. So we want the A and the cross of the A, and then the L, and then the E, and then the back part of our X, and then the front part of our X, and then our E, and then our left of right bottom, right bottom, and the bottom of our I, and then we'll go to Extensions, InkStitch, Edit, and Restack, and it's going to restack, but those all are going to be on top, and we will actually want those to stitch first, so we would just move it all to the bottom, wherever bottom is here. There you go. So now we're at path 56. Remember path 56 because we're going to take that. I don't know what this is. We don't want to select that though. Let's see, what do we got here? What is that? What is that? Did that accidentally? Boy, I don't know. But I don't want it in a group. I know that. Somehow we accidentally got all of that stuck in a group. And we don't want that in no group. So this is something we got to be really careful of because we don't want it in a group. What is that a group of? Let's start there. Okay, that's Harley. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that. That might help us a little bit because we don't really need that right now because we're working on these names. So those are all there, and then these here should all be right after path 56. So that's all of those. And then what do we got here? Right after path 51 should be that. Okay. So what is, let's see here. What is this here? What is this polygon? That is that, our bitmap, and then our original text. Okay. So now all of this is going to stitch in order. Okay. So, but we're not quite done yet. So, but we are going to make a duplicate and keep going. Okay. Now we're not quite done yet. Where all these overlaps are happening, we don't want that to happen. So, real easy fix. Just double click. We're going to add a node there. And then we're going to get rid of that, that, and that. Okay. Now over here, it's a little bit different on our E. Not too much. We're going to add a node there. So we don't want this one, or this one, or this one. Okay. But this is a little bit different situation. So what we want to do here is we're going to leave that, but this here, this path, we are going to make straight again. Okay, see what we did there? So we're gonna first of all, this node we are going to make a cusp. Okay, and then this segment we're gonna make straight, and now you can see. So, but then our node. So now our rail. See how our rail is now? And that's what we want. I know it's a little bit confusing, but that's just a little bit special situation. Okay, so here where the E is connected, or the X is connecting to the E, we need to fix that. Fix, 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 fix. Okay, and then same thing here. Add, by. There you go. So Alexi is done. And then Ari, no editing there, but then here, yes. There. And all I'm doing is hitting Control, Alt, and then clicking. So Control Alt adds a node. Okay. And then Control Alt also and click deletes a node. So you click, and then that's fine. That's fine. Control Alt click, 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 and there you go. There we go. Now, let's just watch and take a look at what's happening here. We should get nice satin stitch results all the way across, and look at absolute perfection. Now, yes and no. Yes and no. I know we need some a little bit of pull compensation, and we need some underlay. So let's zoom in here a little bit. Let's see. Let's just watch right here. Okay, so what we're going to do contour underlay. Yes. And it's going to recalculate that contour underlay. And if we look here, what that contour underlay is, are these two lines. Okay. And then, yes, we do also want to add zigzag. And I've found that the default for the contour and zigzag, for what I'm doing, I'm satisfied with. Okay. So now you can see the zigzag underlay that's been added to all this text. And now I want to point something out right here. If you look right here, you see the endpoints. Let's look at the needles. Okay, yeah, that may be messing it up a little bit, but you see the endpoints of those stitches. What do you see there? They're almost touching, right? They're almost touching. And the reason for that is because that's how our artwork was created. Okay, so let's go ahead and choose apply and quit. And let's look at, this is what we were looking at right here. So if we go to the view menu and choose display mode of outline, do you see how those two lines are almost touching? Okay, so that is exactly where our stitches are going to start and stop, right at that line. And because they're so close to one another, those stitches are going to start and stop right on top of one another, right at the edge. Okay, and that's not always desirable, because we could leave a gap in between there, which we do not want. So this is where the pull compensation will come into play. So if you see here, it says pull compensation, and you can do it by a certain amount of millimeters on each side, or we can do by percentage. I typically use percentage. I'm going to do something crazy, like 20, just to illustrate a point. Okay, so anytime we add a value in here, the software is going to go in and recalculate. But I just did 20 as a crazy number, because I wanted you to see the difference. You see how much overlap there is now with those stitches? The stitches from the X are way overlapping the stitches from the E. Okay, at 20%. But you could see how much beyond the contour underlay the stitches are. Okay, it's compensating for the pull. Satin will pull, will tend to pull inward. And so we add pull compensation so that the column stays the width that we really want, but it's kind of over exaggerated, because when it pulls, then it'll kind of snap back to what we actually want. But in this case, no, we don't want 20%. Okay, I typically use somewhere between 5 and 8. So if I'm going to do 5, let's just try 5. I think that's what I used on those other names. But then let's look at what 5 gives us. Okay, so right here, you can see where those are ending and they're overlapping. Now, they're not overlapping by much, but they are definitely overlapping. Okay, So we could probably go ahead and give it 8, but here's the key thing, okay? So yes, they're not overlapping by much, but if it's properly stabilized and properly hooped, that's probably good enough, okay? I don't think it's really going to hurt anything. You know, the difference between 5 and 8 is not that significant. So maybe we will just go ahead and do it at 8. I guarantee you there won't be no gap. If it's properly stabilized, there will never be a gap at 8. Okay? That I can promise you. But let's zoom in here a little bit so we can see it. And now you can see that this actually does go over quite a bit. So the overlapping there, and then you see here where the connection is between these letters too. There's a good amount of overlap there. So over here where the X is coming into our E, you can see there's a good amount of overlap there now. So we are definitely not going. Let's look at this connection right here at 0. I didn't look at that connection before. So now we're back to 0. And I just wanted to illustrate a point here. You can see once again where those stitches are ending and our E is coming. I mean, they're kissing right there, right? So any amount of pull that satin's going to do is going to wind up leaving a gap. And so that's why we were compensating for that. So we're going to go ahead and leave it at 8. That'll be fine. It'll look perfect. And let's go ahead and just choose apply and quit. Okay. So now all of our text and everything has been edited, and now I'm going to go ahead and save this. So we'll hit File, Save As, and let's just call it, I don't know, let's just call it Ari Carrots. That's the lady's name that ordered these. So there we go, Ari's Carrots. Okay, so what the nice thing is this particular lady actually has, I don't know, 8 more names or so. But the reason that we did it in the order that we did it, this was the original text. So when I come back here and she says, you know, whatever name it is, right? This is the original text. The original height that all of this is digitized in is right here in this stack. Okay. So, so I know now that if she needs, for example, if she needs Marie, for example, let's just say she needs Marie, okay? I know that that A and this R and this I and this E is the same as all of these, okay? So really the only thing for Marie that I need to even digitize is the M. That's it, because I have already digitized all these other ones, okay? So that's the advantage of doing it this way, okay? And then, so we had this, and then we converted it, right? But then we had to convert it further because we had to take care of all of our overlaps. And now we have to convert it even further, because I don't know exactly how big I want this lettering. Now, the original Harley text was 2 1/4, and this is, switch back to inches now. The tallest letter, which is, I think the letter L here, is 2 1/4. Okay, so if we were to move this in here, that would be what Layla would look like on the carrot. Okay, and yes, I think that's probably the size lettering that we're going to go with for this one. We could possibly bump it up. Let's just see once. Let's just maybe bump it up to 2 1/2. Okay, because these are short names. So could we, you remember that carrot, I'll have to measure my carrot and measure the width of the carrot and see exactly what we're, how big the name's going to be, because I don't want it to, if we go back and look at the picture, let's do that. Let's go back and look at the picture so you can see what I'm talking about here. You see how Paisley and even Harley, you see how it kind of wraps around the carrot a little bit because the text was too tall, really. I would rather just see the name and not have it rolled around the caret like that. See how the P is kind of rolled around a little bit, and the Y is rolled around a little bit, and hardly here. So I'll measure the caret, see how wide it is, and whatever the width of that caret is, that's how big I will ultimately make the text so it fits without rolling over the edge. Or if it does roll over the edge just a little bit. Just a little bit. Not too much. Okay? So I hope you got something out of this, and I hope you found it interesting. I try to give you the information that I wish I had when I started. I realize that the information I just gave you was kind of involved and in depth, and it's kind of a long video, but sometimes it just takes a little extra time to explain things thoroughly. But you can see, if I was just to pop in here and handle this text, without me talking about it and just do it, literally 15-20 minutes, and I would have been done. So this is not, once you really understand and grasp what you're doing, it's fairly quick to get the results you seek. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.